So this is going to be the first part of a three-part video series that I'm going to do about removing a wheel and tire from a vehicle. So I want to start first with the tools that you're going to need. So I have them laid out here. It's a good idea to get your stuff in order. First and foremost, I am wearing gloves. I'm going to protect my hand from any kind of dirt or debris that could possibly get on my hand, so I want to keep myself clean. The next place I'm going to go is I need something to be able to lift the vehicle off of the ground. Now this is a really cheap lift that typically is found in the trunk of the car. It comes with a spare tire kit. I'm going to get into in later detail how to actually lift a vehicle properly, how to use this properly, but you need something to get the vehicle off of the ground. Next, you're going to need something to remove the lug nuts from the vehicle. Now I have a couple of different options here. Typically, also along in the trunk with the jack to lift up the vehicle, you're going to find a set of tools, and it's going to come with something like this. So this acts like a breaker bar. It has a socket built in onto the end, and it will fit the lug nuts that originally came on your vehicle. So I have two examples here. Again, these are typically found in the trunk. You're going to get a tool kit that has a couple of different bars and different things for using the jack and also for removing the lug nuts. You can also use a breaker bar that I had shown you during our tool lesson. Right, so this is a breaker bar, and then it also has a socket, so I'm going to find the socket for my vehicle, and I'm working on my Honda Civic today, so it takes a 19mm socket. You can use either a deep socket, a long socket, or a shallow socket, whatever you have around. Just make sure it's the proper size. And then you also can use something like this. This is called a 4-way lug wrench. So on all 4 corners, it's going to have different size sockets. So these are a universal tool you can buy. They're meant to fit all different kinds of vehicles. So you possibly may have one of these in your garage. They're good to have around, again, if you're working on multiple vehicles and you don't have a set of sockets. Okay, so those are the tools. To put the lug nuts back on, now while this is optional, I do recommend it. This is called a torque wrench. This will make sure that we don't under or over tighten the lug nuts, the actual bolts that hold the wheel on. Okay, so torque wrench we're going to get into more detail later as we're going through advanced tools. And then also, while it's not extremely important, it's good to have a piece of sandpaper for cleaning off the rim and also where the tire sits on the vehicle. Okay, so it's a good idea to have one of these. Again, not completely necessary, but it is a good option to have. Okay, so we just talked about the tools needed to remove a tire. Before I actually show you the process, I wanted to give you some terminology to the different parts and pieces of what actually holds the tire onto the vehicle. All right, so just off camera right here, I have a rim and tire set up. Okay, and as you guys can see, there are holes right here. Now I'm not talking about these holes right here, I'm talking about these right here. These are what actually hold the rim and tire onto the car. And that's done so by these. Okay, these are called wheel studs. As you can see, I can spin the wheel around. So this is our Honda Civic. It has 4 wheel studs. So these are threaded. Okay, it's like the bottom side of a bolt. So they are threaded and they mate up with these. So these are the nuts or the lug nuts, the lugs, whatever you want to call them. Now cars can have a minimum of 4 wheel studs and lug nuts, right? So I'll put one lug nut on. You can see it just threads on just like a nut and bolt. So they're going to have a minimum of 4. They're going to have either 5 studs, 6, 8, 10, 12. Usually the bigger the vehicle, the more weight, the more wheel studs they're going to have. Okay? So again, just to clarify, remove this real quick. You have wheel studs. They are threaded. You don't want to damage these. Okay, they are machine precision, so you don't want to damage them, nick them, hit them with anything. So you have wheel studs and lug nuts. All right, we just went over the tools needed to remove a tire from the car, so now we're going to actually perform the process. So I have my vehicle set up the correct way, and I want to begin with the weight of the vehicle on the tire, with the tire on the ground. And that's going to come into play here in just a second, and I'll explain why. So the first thing we're going to want to do is loosen my lug nuts, and that's why I want to start with the vehicle on the ground. If I try to loosen the lug nuts that are on here fairly tight, if I try to loosen these with the tire off of the ground, the wheel's going to simply just spin around and I'm not going to be able to loosen them up. Okay, so I want to do this with the vehicle on the ground. So I'm going to show you 3 different methods of loosening the lug nuts, 3 different tools. Okay, so this Honda Civic has 4 lug nuts holding the wheel on. I want to loosen them in a crisscross pattern, right? So I want to begin here with what we'll call the 3 o'clock position, then I can head to the 9 o'clock, then the 12 o'clock, then the 6 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to loosen them in a crisscross pattern. That's just to get even removal, even distribution of the weight. Okay, so I want to loosen these in a crisscross pattern. When I loosen them, the initial loosen, I'm only going half of a turn, right? From here to here, not halfway off the car, half of a turn, right? From 3 o'clock over to 9 o'clock. So let's start off with our first tool. That is this one. This is a pretty standard lug wrench. It'll be located in the trunk of the car. It comes with the tool kit for an emergency or when putting on a spare tire. There is a socket attached to it. Right, so I'm going to go to my first lug nut and the 3 o'clock position. I'm going to put the tool onto it. And don't forget, loosening, I'm going in a counterclockwise rotation, or lefty-loosey, right this way, from 12 over to 9. So I'm going to begin, I'm going to use my weight, okay? If these are super tight, one thing you can do is put the tool this way, and then you can use your body weight to loosen it like that. But I know for a fact, I just took these off, they're not super tight. But if the tire's been on your car for a really long time, these can get extremely tight. Okay, so again, I'm going to go half of a turn, so I'm going to go the tool from here over to here. So I'm going to lift up, and as you can see, after that initial loosen, the lug nut should be fairly loose. Okay, I'm not going to take it all the way off. I'm just going to leave it right there. Okay, so that's using this tool. If you have a 4-way lug wrench, one of these guys, okay, I'm going to find the end that fits onto my lug nut the best, right? So you can see this one doesn't fit, so I'm just going to go around using different sides until I actually find, there we go, the size that fits. These operate in the same direction, so I'm going to go counterclockwise. I'm going to simply turn half of a turn, and sometimes the tool, if it hits the ground, you're going to have to simply remove it, readjust. Okay, so I'm going to go about half of a turn. Now if I'm using breaker bar, the exact same thing, right? So now I'll go to my 12 o'clock position. I'm going to loosen half of a turn. Okay. Now the first 2 came off and they're loose. This one is staying kind of tight. Here's what's happening. As we are loosening the lugs, the wheel and the tire is actually starting to come off towards us a little bit. So it's going to keep pressure on the lug nuts. That does not mean that you need to keep rotating. Okay. Again, we're still going half of a turn, or if you want to be safe, you can go a full turn. You just don't want to take the lug nuts all the way off. Then I'm going to finish with my 6 o'clock. Let's go half of a turn. Now I know that all 4 of these have been loosened, so I'm going to go lift the car off of the ground. You're going to do this with a floor jack or your scissor lift. I happen to have it on our automotive lift here, so I'm going to lift the vehicle up just a little bit. Okay, so now my tire is off the ground. As you can see, it's a little bit loose. So I can now remove the lug nuts, and you can do this by hand or with a tool. I found that using my hands is the easiest. And I'll give you guys a quick hint about where to place the lug nuts. There we go. So I have all 4 removed. I would put these in a place where they're not going to be kicked, or if somebody walks by, again, you don't want to get them kicked. I don't recommend putting them in the dirt because you can lose them. So if you're doing this on the side of the road, maybe put them in your pocket for now. Again, you just don't want to put them somewhere that they're going to get lost or kicked. So now I can actually remove the tire from the car. And if I was doing a rotation, I would move to the back of the vehicle, grab the rear tire or wherever I'm rotating the tire to. If I'm replacing the tire, I would now do that. But let me show you guys something and why the sandpaper, I had mentioned that in the tools, right? So if I have a little piece of sandpaper, the actual surface right here, where the tire mates up to, this can accumulate rust, dirt, debris, things like that. If I see a lot of it, I'm gonna go in, just kind of sand down just a little bit. I'm not doing it on the actual studs themselves. I don't want to damage these. Okay, but I just want to go in, clean this up just a little bit, get anything that might have accumulated over time right here. And also, you can go to the back side of the rim. So this is where it mates up to the car, and I can do the same thing. Just give it a quick little clean. All right, so let's go back on with the tire. So I'm going to set the tire, the rim, on to the hub. There we go. And I'm going to put my lug nuts on hand tight. When you're going back on just that initial finger tight, you don't need to do this in any special crisscross pattern or anything like that. Now don't forget the wheel is tilted like this. It is tilted outward. So once I get the top one on, I'm going to press the bottom to kind of get it flush. Then I'm going to put my lower lug nut on. You want to get these finger tight, like I said. So kind of pushing all around, making sure that they have seated properly. I'm going to put all 4 of my lug nuts back on. From here, if the tire feels fairly tight, you'd be good to go. We're going to go ahead and lower the vehicle back down. Okay, so now we have the weight of the vehicle back onto the rim, onto the tire. So now we need to give these lug nuts their final tighten. The proper way to do it, and I haven't introduced this to you guys yet, but the proper way to do that is what's called a torque wrench. So this measures a specific tightening force of the lug nut. You may have one of these at home, you may not. If you don't, you're stuck on the side of the road somewhere. What I recommend to do is get the tires, get the lug nuts, okay? I would get them, you want to get them fairly tight. You don't want to get them, you don't have to He-Man them on there, you know, as super tight as you can, but you want to get them on there to where they're not going to back off. Now, when installing the lug nuts, you want to go in the crisscross pattern again. Okay, so we'll go 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Okay, so I want to go in and get them fairly snugged up. So there's 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and we can go. Either 6 or 12, whichever one. If you're working on a 5 lug nut pattern, right, that there's 5 of them, 1, 2, let's say a third one, 4, and 5, that one you're going to go in a star pattern. So we would go 1, 2, 3, 4, no, excuse me, sorry, it's hard to imagine one. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're going to make kind of a star pattern like that. Okay, and then 6 lug nut, you're going to do the same. You want to go in a crisscross. The main thing is you just try to avoid going in a circle, okay, because this puts inadequate force. It's going to cause some other issues. So you want to try to go as opposite as you can when tightening. Now, if you don't have a torque wrench, if one, you're putting on a spare tire, right? You had an emergency, a flat tire, you're going to drive immediately to the tire shop, and then they are going to replace your tire and then properly put it back on. If you were doing a tire rotation at home, what I would recommend is going into a repair facility and saying, hey, I just had to take my wheels off. Would you guys mind going around and double checking the torque of my lug nuts? Okay, and most shops are going to do that for you. All right, so that's taking the tire on and off of the vehicle.